Okay. The next item is 1900 Skyline. Welcome. 1900 Skyline Boulevard. It's a request for a conditional use permit to construct a wireless telecommunications facility within a restricted residential zoning district and to exceed the height limits for the district in which it is located up to 50 feet per sections 12-200 and 12-80-160 of the San Bruno zoning ordinance. Laura?
Thank you and good evening. The application is for a wireless facility at the PG&E substation, which is located on Skyline Boulevard, just south of Sneath Lane, and that's south and adjacent to the Church of the Highlands. The project includes a monopine design, which it resembles a pine tree. There are photo simulations of the proposed monopine included in your staff report. The project also includes 7 prefabricated equipment cabinets. Those are proposed to be 5 feet, 6 inches tall, and there are some minor associated equipment. All of this would be located within a leasable area that would be surrounded by an 8-foot chain link fence that would have colored slats that would be selected to blend into the area. So sort of a green or brown, something that would blend into that environment up there. You're probably familiar with the substation location. The majority of the site is gravel. It's minimally developed just for the substation, and then there's some landscaping that buffers the site from Skyline Boulevard. Access to the site is through an easement off of Skyline, and so that's where vehicles currently access the substation location. So we would not expect any impact on residential properties to the side of the site. We would not expect that impact either for installation or for the monthly maintenance that would take place after the installation was complete. As the Planning Commission is aware, the applicant is required to submit a radio frequency report analyzing the emissions from the proposed facility, both on a cumulative basis, so all of the wireless facilities that are located there, as well as this particular facility. So this particular facility is calculated at 9.9, so about 10% of the public exposure limit. And then the cumulative analysis, so the sites that are all there added together, would be 31% of the public exposure limit at the ground level. Okay, so this is 50 feet in the air, is with the pole is the maximum height of the monopine, and then the antennas are about 5 feet down from that. So down at the ground level, about 45 feet below, it would be 31% of the public exposure limit. So well below the maximum threshold, and the project would not require any additional mitigation measures in order to meet the federal FCC requirements. The project was reviewed at the June 13th Architectural Review Committee meeting. At that time, the committee supported the monopine design to meet the stealth design requirement and forwarded the project with some recommendations. The applicant has addressed those comments, and so those things are integrated into the plans that are before you tonight. The first one is to ensure that the monopine would meet the height limit, and so they did adjust the height of the tree, and so there would be sort of those kind of branches at the top of the tree that we've discussed before, so it would not be just the antennas at the very top of the tree. So there would be some faux branches at the top, and then the antennas would start a few feet down, and the total height of the entire structure would not exceed 50 feet. The other minor recommendation was to include the colored slats for the fence around the leasable area, and as I mentioned, that has been implemented. So in regards to public comments, staff sent a courtesy notice in May of 2013 and a legal notice on September 6th. We received one email in opposition to the project. That email has been distributed tonight on paper to the Planning Commission and is available here for members of the public. Staff did communicate back and forth with this resident, and to summarize some of her concerns, they were related to potential health and safety impacts and potential interference with PG&E communications and equipment. And as I mentioned, the RF emissions for a cumulative basis are expected to be 31% of the exposure limit. So as we know under the FCC regulations, that is well below the threshold and considered safe by those FCC regulations. And so we do not anticipate any additional concerns related to that. Also, we've learned over the many years of wireless communications locating at PG&E facilities and on PG&E equipment throughout the community. PG&E has a very strict guidelines to ensure that wireless facilities don't interfere with their operations. And so the applicant has gone through those appropriate procedures and ensured with PG&E that there are not any issues. And as I understand it, PG&E has also reviewed the project and the conditions of approval for tonight. Staff also received one phone call in support of the project. So staff would recommend approval of the project subject to findings 1 through 7 and subject to conditions of approval 1 through 15. The conditions that staff has placed on the project this evening are the standard conditions of approval for wireless facilities. It does include the condition that came up some years back in regards to maintenance of these facilities. We do expect that the facility be maintained in like-new condition to the satisfaction of the Community Development Director, and as I understand it, the applicant might be able to provide additional detail for you on that topic tonight, because it has been one that has been an issue in the community some years back, but not so much recently. So I'm sure she can speak to that if you would like to hear any additional detail. So we would recommend approval of the project, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Through the chair.
Commissioner.
On the letter that we received by this particular person that lives in San Francisco, I'm trying to understand typically as to the thinking behind it, as to just trying to understand living in San Francisco. I mean, is it something that they drive by, or I'm not quite sure. I think there's some health issues, but there's also something related to some financial gain to PG&E. So I'm wondering, interested to know as to what motivated the thinking behind the letter. There's just more than just really, I think, health things on here. And then the other thing I wanted just to ask, I live up there and I drive by that at least twice a day, if not more. And the location where it is, you have to drive up this little driveway to be able to get to the back, and it's not truly a public road at all. And is it really visible? Is it truly that visible from Skyline and from other areas? And when I receive a complaint from someone, I really feel it's important to address those issues and take a look at all the areas. But I also think it's important to look at what's the thinking behind all, weigh out all the components and to say, okay, how, what warrants the decision on my decision, part to accept a project or deny a project. And in this case, I'm kind of interested because someone from San Francisco coming to make this issue. We certainly know from the research we've done, not only as commissioners, but mostly through our staff relying on the research about the health issues. And is there any new development on health issues that have come up? I mean, you comment to some of that, but is there anything new that we should be aware of? And those are my comments, questions.
Through the chair. My understanding of this comment is that it is from a San Bruno resident, and this is her professional address. Okay. So this is from her professional email address. So I believe that she is a resident of the community. There is sort of a concern in the letter in regards to PG&E getting a financial gain from this project. Our understanding is that it is standard for telecommunications facilities to pay a lease fee to have these kinds of facilities. PG&E has to have a number of them on many of their different facilities pretty much throughout this area. When they were considering locations, there is some information in your staff report in regards to their site analysis, looking for appropriate locations for this. Typically what happens is the applicant will identify a gap in coverage. It's something we've talked about in the past, but we haven't had on the agenda for some time. So then they are required as part of their analysis to consider different options to meet that gap in coverage. So they did consider some different options that included several different antennas within the public right-of-way, which oftentimes has a greater visual impact. They considered the Skycrest location to the south, and then some locations that potentially could have more impact on the residential uses. And so those considerations go into their application when they apply to us. And we would review that site analysis, but we would not normally concern ourselves with the financial gain or loss of the person that they eventually lease with. So that's the kind of analysis that staff would normally do. In regards to its visibility from Skyline, the equipment at the ground, we would not expect to be visible. It's quite small equipment, 5 feet 6 inches, cabinets, 8-foot tall fence. There is a lot of planted material at that location. The monopine itself, of course, is visible, and that's what's shown in your photo simulations that are included in your packet. And so it's from a couple of different angles, so we can anticipate what appearance that's going to have. So that would be staff's analysis of the visibility of the site. In regards to safety concerns, staff is not aware of any change to the FCC regulations that make it quite clear to us that as long as they meet those federal guidelines, that projects should not be disapproved because of health concerns. And so the applicants these days are very thorough in the way that they present their projects and any potential mitigation measures in order to ensure safety. At this particular site in particular, there is not public access. You can't get close to it, and the nearest house is behind on Monterey or some distance away or all the way across Skyline. And so even getting to the closest possible point with a 30% of the public exposure limit emissions would be, not possible for a member of the public because it is a secure site. So we're not aware of any particular concerns in regards to safety for this site, nor are we aware of any changes to the federal law.
Thank you for answering that.
Through the chair, just kind of a general question on these towers. How about if the company goes out of business or go bankrupt, who's responsible for the removal of the equipment? Would it be the property owner, or is there a bond put up there? Is there a condition for that?
We have updated our conditions in recent years to try to address this fact, and so we have some language in condition number 9. If the facility is abandoned or non-operational, it shall be removed at the full cost of the applicant within 60 days. So that's if the applicant is still, present. There's been changes in cell phone companies over the years, and so sometimes this can be a challenge to implement. And so what we've added is condition number 13. And so we require additional contact persons for the facility at the time of building permit issuance, and we try to reflect that in the record. This has made it easier for us to implement conditions of approval and see projects through over recent years. And so what happens is if the facility operator is non-responsive to city communications, then the property owner has to then take responsibility. So this is a relatively new condition.
I read number 9, and it mentions the applicant. Can we add and/or owner? Because if on this one here, I think Verizon's going to go out of business. But it should be kind of blanket that the applicant and/or owner should be responsible for the removal. Well, the owner of the property. Because it's the applicant's always, like on this one here, the applicant is PG or Verizon. So if they go out of business, the condition just says the applicant's responsible. And if there is no Verizon, there's no applicant. But if they put and/or owner, then PG&E would be responsible.
Yes, I think that would be a good addition to condition number 9.
Okay. Anyone else?
Through the chair. Just one other comment on the tree. If that tree, and you might have addressed this already, Laura, if that tree starts to get that blue color, that sort of hazy, who maintains that piece of it? Because it does happen, and maybe there's new materials and things would not happen. And maybe it's a question for the applicant, but and I'm happy to address it with the applicant. But I guess it's better than another metal tower looking at it, because there's plenty of metal towers as you drive by and see those. However, I think that a blue hazy tree becomes sometimes more of an obstacle than another metal thing. I'll reserve my comments actually for the applicant. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. Would the applicant like to go to the podium, give us your name, and tell us about your project?
Good evening, Planning Commissioners, staff, and members of the public. My name is Lily Lim, and I'm with Core Development Services, and we represent Verizon Wireless for this project located at 1900 Skyline Boulevard. Verizon Wireless is proposing to install a 50-foot faux monopine in an existing PG&E substation. Verizon's first proposal was to install a 55-foot faux monopine. However, during the Architectural Review Committee meeting, the committee had concerns with the height of the site and suggested that we lower it to 50 feet to meet the city's height limit. Further, the committee also wanted slats added to the chain link fence to help screen the equipment. Initially, we just had a chain link fence, so the committee wanted to see wooden slats. Verizon has addressed both concerns that the committee had and is now presenting you with a 50-foot faux monopine as well as a wooden slatted chain link fence. Also, during the committee meeting, there was also concerns about the maintenance and the color and who would maintain the site. And typically, once they go out, technicians go out there every 4 to 6 weeks, and they take care of the equipment and make sure that everything's still looking good. And so I was told that once maintenance is needed on tree branches, sometimes, if the tree branches, if leaves fall or things like that, they'll go and replace the branch. How the tree is constructed is it's a pole, and they have branches that screw into, I guess, essentially the metal base, the entire base. And so it's easy for them to just pull out a branch and then replace it with something that looks better. The other thing is, initially we submitted this design, we submitted the tree design as well as a metal pole. My initial thoughts were that because it's a PG&E substation, the metal pole would blend in better, but after we got photo sims done, we realized that the tree actually fit in better, and so we changed our design to move forward with the tree due to the landscaping that's between the site and Highway 35. The other thing is the exposure limit for the EMF reports. That's based on a worst case scenario. If everyone, the entire capacity is at its full max, that's what the exposure limit would be. And I mean, someone driving by Highway 35 wouldn't be sitting there for a good 8 hours. So hopefully Skyline would never be that bad in traffic. But basically the exposure limit is based off of the worst case scenario. If every person is calling and every person is using their data for many, many hours at a time. Let me know if you have other questions that I can answer.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Through the chair,
Commissioner Johnson.
I think you basically addressed the issue on the tree by indicating how you screw in the branches, and also I'm satisfied with your answer.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there someone from the public who'd like to comment? No? Okay. So we'll bring it back to the commission for conversation, motion, vote.
Through the chair,
Commissioner,
if there's no discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve use permit 12-015 based on, timeout. We get the right verbiage, based on findings of fact 1 through 7 and conditions of approval 1 through 15. Sorry about that.
okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion is approved, and I believe there's a 10-day appeal period on that as well. Congratulations.